Chapter 4, The Body Owner's Manual. Most folks go through life as though they truly believe the opening words of that old song, I ain't got no body. The average person has no idea of the location of the organs, glands, vessels, nerves, arteries, and other components of the body, to say nothing of the lack of knowledge of their function. And that internal ignorance is probably the best explanation for the kind of food most people shove into their bodies. It is characteristic of the American dream for folks to work very hard to earn enough money or credit to surround themselves with pieces of machinery, a television set, a refrigerator, a dishwasher, a stereo, a clothes washer and dryer, and of course an automobile. But before they've earned a penny, Mother Nature has provided them with the finest mechanisms imaginable, their own body. Yet most people appreciate this marvelous piece of equipment the least. The tragic truth is that most folks treat their automobiles better than their own bodies. If it was definitely proved that smoking cigarettes in an automobile would instantly corrode the engine, every smoker would quit smoking in his car. No automobile owner would pour refined sugar into the gas tank or stuff a steak in the carburetor or shove wet, soggy white bread into the radiator. Automobile owners would refrain from such things because they know it would damage their precious machines. Also, automobile owners are constantly in search of the best possible fuel for their cars. They are careful to change the oil regularly and see that the car is periodically lubricated. They check the owner's manual provided by the manufacturer of their car to see that they are treating their machine correctly. Yet, the car owner will park his automobile, run into the luncheonette, and wreak havoc upon his personal machine. This chapter is intended to serve as a brief body owner's manual for the care, keeping, and understanding of that marvelous machine Mother Nature has given to us free of charge. Although everyone will one day have to face that final recall of the body machine, the length and quality of service depend on how well the operational demands of the mechanisms are understood and the care it is given. The filtering system. There are a number of glands in the body engaged in the filtering process, but the two major filters are the liver and the kidneys. In the car owner's manual, you are advised to change the filter periodically. Medical doctors sometimes offer the same advice for the body machine, calling the process of changing filters transplants. While it is good, in fact, essential to cleanse them through proper diet, Mother Nature's filters usually carry a lifetime guarantee if treated properly. The liver. Everything we eat or drink is broken down and carried by the blood to the liver. In the liver, the atoms and molecules of our food are reconstructed into material which the body uses to repair, replenish, and rebuild cells and tissues. Thus, the liver is certainly one of the most important and amazing glandular organs in the entire body machine. It is the largest gland, making up about 1/4 of a person's total weight, and the liver has miraculous powers of regenerating and healing itself, which of course is the blessing to most people, considering the punishment they inflict upon their liver through improper diet. If heart or brain cells are damaged and die, they cannot be replaced. But the liver, given the nourishment needed to heal itself, can remarkably come back to life. Most abused livers need only a decent opportunity for personal resurrection. The liver performs a number of complex chemical functions in the body. Rearranged molecules and atoms are sent back into the bloodstream from the liver and are distributed to the other glands and parts of the body as they are needed. The byproducts of the reconstruction work in the liver, along with used up cells from other parts of the body system, are converted by the liver into bile. The bile is collected and stored in the gallbladder and is used as needed in the digestive process and other functions of the body. The liver is burdened with the workload of undoing the damage inflicted upon the body by improper eating and drinking habits. Poisons and narcotics, which would destroy the body if left alone, are passed as quickly as possible to the liver. The liver cells neutralize the poisonous components and try to convert them into harmless chemical compounds. It's as though the rest of the body were saying to the liver, dig, baby. See what you can do about what this fool just ate and drank. When raw fruits and vegetables and their juices are consumed, the liver performs its functions normally. Only raw, live, vital, organic food has the magnetism needed to aid in the bodily functions. So when we cook or process foods are consumed, foods which have lost their vital natural magnetism through the application of heat, the liver has a big job on his hands, baby. The liver has to try to reconstruct inorganic, lifeless atoms and molecules, starches, grains, meat products, and anything that has been cooked and fat give the liver a tremendous workout. Starch molecules, for example, when passing through the liver, can become lodged in the liver cells. When this happens often enough, a congestion develops which can result in cirrhosis or hardening of the liver. The liver becomes stiff as a board. The diet prepared in most kitchens may be responsible for that common phrase, room and board. It is interesting to note that most people think of cirrhosis of the liver as a disease peculiar to heavy drinkers. While it is true that heavy drinkers are inviting to this disaster, it is also quite possible for a heavy starch consumer or a big sandwich eater to develop cirrhosis without having had a drink of alcohol during an entire lifetime. Concentrated proteins such as meat is also difficult for the liver to handle, and eating it runs the danger of clogging liver cells and causing inflammation. The liver has to work double duty trying to deal with fat that has been cooked to as little as 96 degrees Fahrenheit. And no matter how lean meat is, there is always some fat. Let me offer an example, suggested by N.W. Walker in his excellent book, Become Younger, to illustrate what most folks do to their liver every day. If a person bought a truck and the owner's manual said the load capacity was half ton, the new truck owner would be a fool to load up the truck with 2 or 3 tons and run it day in and day out. The truck would carry the load for a while, but one day it would break down and the owner would be running to the bank for a loan on a new truck. It's the same with the load capacity of the liver. Most folks overload its capacity every single day of their lives, 3 meals a day, and the liver handles its burden load for a time. One day, it is likely to break down. Before the truck breaks down completely, it will slow up. The tires will give way, the springs will sag, and the frame will be pushed out of shape. And the overloaded liver will bring about the same reaction in the human body. Consider a person suffering from the sluggish liver, slow, lifeless movements, feet lagging, and frequently a bent frame. The kidneys. The other major filters are the kidneys, 2 glandular organs about the size of a human fist suspended by a ligament from the rear wall of the abdomen, hanging loosely near the spinal column. The kidneys serve the function of filtering the water in the body as it is passed through them by the bloodstream. The kidneys are another one of Mother Nature's miracles. They are made up of more than 30 billion cells grouped into clusters of miles of little coils. Each cluster is no longer than a speck of dust, yet contains some 15,000 cells. These tiny coils filter 4 gallons of water every day. Only 2 to 4 pints is passed as waste through the bladder and eliminated as urine. The remaining water is recirculated by the bloodstream throughout the body system. Every drop of liquid consumed is filtered through the kidneys. The blood is about 3/5 water, and that water content remains constant no matter how much is taken in. Excess water taken in above 3 quarts in the blood is stored in the muscles and the liver, but is all filtered by the kidneys. Everyone knows what happens to water that is left standing and is not replenished by a flow of fresh, pure water. It becomes stagnant. The same thing happens in the body. It is very important to replenish the body with pure drinking water or the organic water which comes from raw fruit and vegetable juices. Water in the body system is the most important element in proper maintenance. with the exception of oxygen in the air. Transmission fluid. The bloodstream is the transmitter of food throughout the body system and at the same time the garbage collector. There are about 4 quarts of blood in constant circulation out of the 6 quarts or more in the body machine. To appreciate the marvel of circulating bloodstream, it might help to realize that your blood deals in more billions than the United States Department of Defense. The bloodstream is composed of some 24 or 25 billion microscopic cells. They travel so fast through the body machine, it will make the astronaut and the NASA engineer's head swim. Every 15 to 25 seconds, the 20 billion plus cells travel the whole route, from head to foot, through the heart and to the lungs to get a fresh supply of oxygen and leave behind the carbonic acid gas from the body system. Those 20 billion plus cells make from 3,000 to 5,000 round trips through the body machine every 24 hours. So every second of the day and night, billions of blood cells are traveling through the heart and into the breathing chambers of the lungs. And each and every one must have proper nourishment for the journey. The next time you're tempted to make a diet of pastries and coffee, stop and think if your blood cells will find it ideal fuel for the distances they must travel. And think of the workload of the blood cells in a mere 16 cupfuls of blood. Every cell and tissue of the body is constantly being bathed in lymph fluid. The lymph is a fluid substance made up of cells known as lymph cells, white blood cells or corpuscles or leukocytes, and scavenger cells known as phagocytes. So completely is the body machine covered with lymph vessels for the bathing and lubricating process that if the lymph vessels were placed end to end in a straight line, they would span a distance of over 100,000 miles. The line of the intestine, for example, are filled with lymph nodes or knots, which continuously serve as security agents in the body to guard against the intrusion of destructive substances and liquids. Millions of other lymph security guards are located for strategic points in the body machine. For example, a specifically refined lymph, cerebrospinal fluid, cushions in the brain, and a spinal cord against the walls of bone surrounding them. The condition of this lymph is very important in maintaining the mental and physical balance of the body machine. Such seemingly simple acts, standing up, walking, running, and other physical movements are completely dependent upon the healthy functioning and the balanced relationship of the brain and the spinal cord. The muscles receive their impulses for the physical movement from the spinal cord, and the coordination comes from the brain. The ear channels are also filled with lymph. Every time the head is moved one way or another, the lymph level changes. You can't agree or disagree without the lymph being involved. Thus, the lymph is very important in keeping the physical equilibrium of the entire body machine. The transmission fluid, the blood, and the lymph, and the transmission system, the lymph, and the blood vessels must be kept clean and free of clogging. Clogging, or capillary impactions, can result in such things as defective hearing, dizziness, eye trouble, unsteadiness, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, hardening of the arteries, tumors, and blood clots on the brain or elsewhere in the body machine. Starches of all kinds, fried foods, and other cooked fats are the great cloggers. When functioning according to Mother Nature's design, the lymph nodes in the intestines collect fats, but they do not collect protein or carbohydrate material passing through. The collected fats are converted into fine liquid or emulsions and passed into the main lymph channel in the throat and then on into the bloodstream. Mother Nature's system works very smoothly when the fats are raw, uncooked, and natural, such as in olive oil, avocado, raw nuts, and so on. But if you throw fried foods, buttered popcorns, cooked salted nuts, or donuts at the lymph security agents, try as they will, they may not be able to break down the fat since it has been converted by cooking into an inorganic product, and the fat may remain in circulation in the blood for hours, resulting in clogging of the system. Oh, that popcorn you eat in the movie theater may be creating a late show in the body machine. One further word about starches: the body machine takes the fuel provided by the owner and breaks it down into atoms and molecules, the smallest particles into which matter can be broken down. For example, the formula for water, as almost everyone knows, is H2O. The smallest particle of water is composed of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. The formula for starch molecule is C6H10O6, 6 atoms of carbon, 10 atoms of hydrogen, and 6 atoms of oxygen. The starch molecule is not soluble in water, alcohol, or ether. Heavy consumers of white bread, breakfast cereals, and other starchy foods are inviting all the ailments accompanying clogging. Starch eaters shouldn't be surprised to develop deposits of gravel and stones in the kidneys and the gallbladder. Since the starch molecule travels around the body machine in an undissolved state, unable to be used by the glands, cells, and tissues of the body machine tries to flush it out. If the organs designed to take care of eliminating waste become clogged, the body machine looks for other places to throw the starches out. The pores of the skin provide a perfect opening, and Mother Nature provides even for her most disobedient children. Germs thrive on starchy matter, and they assist in breaking down accumulated starch molecules, forming pus, which is more easily pushed out through the pores of the skin. Instant pimples. Teenagers with acne and pimple problems will probably be found to have heavy starch diets. The carburetor. The lungs are made up of tiny bunches of cells similar to grapes, microscopic in size and about 400 million in number. The importance of the lungs is emphasized by the fact that the body machine can operate days, weeks, and months without food, at least days and perhaps weeks without water, but only a few minutes without air. The blood cells and corpuscles must have oxygen to burn up waste matter, break down the structure of food and liquid, and make available atoms and molecules to the cell tissues and glands of the body machine. The machine takes in about a pint of air at a time, or 20,000 pints a day, or 2,500 gallons. After each intake of air, the body lets out millions of molecules in the form of carbonic acid gas. That's the in and out performance of the body machine according to Mother Nature's ideal design, with no interference in the carburetor. When foods are eaten which produce a high degree of mucus in the system, such as cow's milk and starchy foods, the excess mucus lodges in the lungs as well as other places in the body. The little bunches in the lungs become so tightly clogged that oxygen can't get through. The same thing happens, of course, when cigarette smoke or polluted air is inhaled. This is in addition to the nicotine content of cigarettes, which has an extremely poisonous effect upon the system. When debris settles in the lungs, shutting off the flow of a fresh intake of oxygen, Mother Nature's body machine tries to compensate. It steals oxygen from the carbonic acid gas, CO2, which is supposed to be expelled. When the oxygen is thus borrowed from CO2 or CO or carbon monoxide, it is left in the system. Carbon monoxide is known for its deadly effect. People who want to end it all go into the garage, close the doors, turn on the engine of the car, and breathe in the carbon monoxide fumes from the exhaust pipe. Others, of course, choose the slower method of suicide by a lifetime of relaxation through cigarette smoking. Incidentally, the relaxing or soothing effect upon the nerves cigarette smokers claim to rationalize their habit is really nothing other than a deadening or anesthesiaing of the nerve centers. Death is indeed ultimate relaxation. The fuel pump, battery, spark plugs, and other parts. The heart is the fuel pump of the body machine, pumping oxygen through the bloodstream as to various parts of the body according to their need. Since The heart is a living tissue. It must receive nourishment from the food taken into the body. However, it does not receive nourishment from the blood pumped through it, but rather from a special supply of blood coming through the coronary arteries. The pumping action of the heart causes it to beat, giving rise to the familiar political comment in the United States that vice presidents is only a heartbeat away from the presidency. The phrase really means that as long as the president's heart is beating, the vice president is still away from the presidency. The heart beats about 100,000 to 150,000 times a day, pumping somewhere between 10,000 and 11,000 quarts of blood throughout the body. Circulating the blood around at such a pace, the heart will pump some 45 million gallons of blood in the span of a half a century. Few other fuel pumps could render that kind of service. The rate of the heart or the intensity of its work depends upon the demand put upon it by other parts of the body. When an organ is called upon to do more work, it needs a greater supply of oxygen, and thus the heart must work harder too. Exercising requires more oxygen, and the heart must pump it. So does eating. When the process of digesting is going on, glands and organs need greater supplies of oxygen from the heart. If the diet consists of the wrong kind of food, overloading the work of the liver and other parts of the body, the heart also feels the strain. The action of the heart speeds up when the carbonic acid gas content of the blood is increased. Eating in excess of carbon foods increases the carbonic acid gas content of the blood and consequently puts a hurting on the heart. Starchy foods, cereals, and all kinds of manufactured sugar have this effect. Too much carbon food intake results in both high and low blood pressure. It is tragically amusing to hear folks talk about having heart trouble when, if they analyze their diet, they would have to admit they are giving themselves heart trouble. The storage battery of the body machine is the nerve system. During sleep, the battery system stores up energy to replace the vital life forces. The main distributing nerve center of the body machine is located at the base of the brain in the medulla oblongata, just above the nape of the neck. There are two main divisions of the battery system: the sympathetic nervous system and the central nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system has nothing to do with a person's sympathetics, but rather controls the directing force coming from the brain. Breathing, the regulation of temperature and water in the body, the organs involved in eating and drinking, regulating the distribution of blood, all these functions and many more are affected by the sympathetic nervous system. The central nervous system is operation central in the body machine. It is the network of nerves from the brain down to the spinal cord, spreading throughout the body to the skin. Operation Central sends out an alarm when anything is wrong or out of line in the body machine. A headache or a toothache or any other pain is an alarm from Operation Central, the central nervous system, and of course, the purpose of the alarm is to see that the source and cause of the pain are treated. So what treatment do most body owners give? They take an aspirin or some type of chemical painkiller. The result is simply to kill or deaden the nerve trying to do its duty. The headache or toothache or whatever will disappear, but the cause will remain unattended. It is exactly the same as the ancient custom of killing the messenger because he brought bad news to the emperor. Every organ, limb, and part of the body machine has three major nerve endings. One is in the iris of the eye. One is in the walls of the colon. One is in the sole of the feet. It is standard practice of the trained naturopath to be able to look at the eyes, the soles of the feet, or an x-ray of the colon and tell exactly which parts of the body machine are in trouble. For example, the nerve at the lowest portion of the ascending colon corresponds to the pituitary gland, the gland of mental and physical balance. Persons who experience mental and physical unbalance or epileptic fits have been reported to have a nest of worms thriving in an uneliminated waste matter in the colon, which is causing the difficulty. If not worms, it is at least a large amount of accumulated waste matter which has piled up over the years and not been flushed out, causing severe inflammation of the colon. When the body machine is functioning as Mother Nature intended, the nerves and the muscles have a good working relationship. The nerves send out the impulses and the muscles get to work. They are such a team that if something is done to mess up one teammate, the other is usually directly affected. Meat is an enemy of the muscles, which in turn makes it a potential foe of the nerves. Meat is bad for the muscles because it tempts them so. Muscles have a particular attraction to uric acid, the end product of the digestion and breaking down the protein molecules. Uric acid should be expelled through the kidneys, but because of the muscles' attraction to it, they absorb the uric acid before it can be eliminated, especially when there is an excess. Finally, the saturation point is reached. The uric acid begins to crystallize in the muscles. When the crystallized containing muscles are moved, the sharp points penetrate the covering of the nearest nerve and the sharper pain is registered. It is the first warning of later trouble, rheumatism, neuritis, or sciatica. Heavy meat eaters often have 7 to 12 times as much uric acid retained in their system as should have been eliminated through the kidneys in the first place. Gas and the body machine. There is a very old joke about the roadside restaurant that had fuel pumps out front to serve the needs of passing motorists. The sign read, "Eat here and get gas." And that sign pretty well sums up the traditional American diet. Of course, the gas we're talking about here is not the kind you'll find in a car owner's manual. We're talking about the natural chemical action in the body machine whereby matter is converted from a solid or a liquid to a gaseous state. After food has passed through the stomach and in the small intestine, bacteria in the body machine go to work on the residue of food as part of Mother Nature's design. The function of the friendly, helpful bacteria is to break down the residue so it can be absorbed for constructive purposes. It enters the colon from the small intestine as a liquid. The ascending colon goes to work on the liquid, taking out most of the water and the food elements the body machine will use, and sends the remaining fibrous substance on to the next section of the colon as feces to be eliminated. The dome-like portion of the upper stomach collects the gas, which develops as a result of the digestive process, and raw natural foods are eaten. The small quantity of gas released through the work of the digestive juices can be handled quite well by the stomach. When foods are eaten haphazardly and in the wrong combination, like meat and potatoes, bread and butter, and perhaps jam, fruit and sugar, ice cream, pie and cake, coffee, sugar, the incompatible mixtures can cause a great deal of fermentation. Belching is a consequence of the consumption of canned, cooked, and processed foods. The dead fibers in cooked foods hinder the work of the entire intestinal tract. While the fibers in raw foods assist the work of the intestines, the habit of eating cooked dead foods causes the intestinal walls to lose their tone and degenerate over a period of time. Waste matter is not properly eliminated and it adheres to the walls of the intestines, accumulating in the pockets of the colon. The result is a regular gunfight or shootout in the body machine between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. The good bacteria try to neutralize the waste matter and eliminate it. The bad bacteria find it very comfortable living quarters and try to get the waste matter to remain. The result of the shootout is an excessive amount of gas. The average restaurant meal, beginning with cocktails, alcohol is very gas forming, and ending with coffee and sugar is a regular showdown at the OK Corral. Although a certain amount of gas in the intestines is natural and inevitable, excessive gas can cause a host of ailments, including what frequently passes for a heart attack. Gas pressure against the heart and blood vessels can send a person scampering for digitalis tablets when an enema would be more in order. The sewage system. This is probably the most important section of the body's owner manual. It has been claimed that 9/10 of the physical disorders and diseases of body owners have their origin in the stomach and intestines, the two great abuses body owners inflict upon the